Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Man, did you guys catch any of the debate last night? Got a little crazy. Normally, I don't watch that kind of stuff because it's all just a dog and pony show. But I'll admit I had to tune in and catch a little bit, and I watched about the last half of it. And you know, in the end, it's kind of sad that our once great nation, that is what we're up against. That's what we have. And I've said it before, and I'm not poo-pooing anyone that is a Trump supporter because, you know, in the end, I think he's a better candidate than his opponent, Joe Biden. But I think regardless of who wins the election, we, the American people, are going to lose. But that's not what I wanted to talk to you about today. Been pulling some wire in the pole barn house and kind of getting it ready to start getting the electrical work done on it. If any of you are interested in the progresses here on the homestead a little bit more, I make videos over on my Patreon page that, you know, it's a little bit more detailed on what's going on here at the homestead, what I'm doing with the house, things like that. So if you want to sign up for that, it's only $1 a month to get in the door. I'm also dropping a video there today on kind of why I think the left is actually wanting Trump to win and how that all plays in with really everything that we've been talking about. And so I'm kind of going down that road of just some opinions. If you're interested, again, you can go over onto Patreon and you can check that video out. It'll be released today also on there. While you're at it, if you don't mind, to click the like and the subscribe button, and off to the side when you subscribe there's a little bell there. If you click on that, you will get more notifications when I release videos here on this channel, which is just about daily. I try to put one up about every day, usually 5 to 6 a week. Anyways, so I wanted to talk to you today about preppers versus survivalists versus self-sufficiency. And just kind of my take on it. I know those words get thrown around a lot, and I use the word prepper a whole lot, and I think mostly because it's just become the general accepted term of what we're doing. But, you know, honestly, it's even more than that. And I kind of, you know, not that any one of them are good or bad or better or worse. I do think that there is a separation between the three. And I personally kind of see it as working your way up in levels of advancement, starting at being a prepper, moving up to survivalist, and then finally hitting that self-sufficiency. And so I wanted to kind of talk about those today, and it kind of explain my viewpoint on those, and hopefully along the way also kind of inspire you a little bit more. I have been prepping, but it was really more of being a survivalist since I was about 15, 16 years old. I was involved in Boy Scouts, and an older guy that was a leader there and became a very big influence in my life and mentored me. He was a Vietnam vet, and he was a survivalist. My father's also a Vietnam vet, and got some influence from my own father because he was also very outdoorsy. But this guy was very much a survivalist, very woodsy, very primitive, knew a lot of primitive skills, and also, you know, was constantly preparing at that time for the end of the world. And so he instilled a lot of those skills and traits in me. So, you know, we're getting close to almost 30 years, at least 25 years, that I have been on this path of survivalist, prepping, primitive skills, self-sufficiency. Through my teenage years and early 20s, I got really heavily into learning about being self-sufficient. The little small town that I grew up in as a teenager, I was going to the library and picking up books and magazines like old Mother Earth news back when they were actually pretty good. Books like Back to the Basics and different types of books like that on how to live off grid, how to live simple, how to become self-sufficient. And so since then, through most of my adult life, I have tried it in some form or fashion to live that way. Whether it was the few times that I've lived in the city, although not a big city, but most of my life has been living in some form of rural fashion, whether it's just in the country or deep into the woods, completely off grid. Prepping, to me, really is kind of the starting point. That's when you realize that that the things in this world, whether they be natural or unnatural or controlled by powers and orchestrated by elites, it doesn't matter. You've realized that the system around you is not as stable as you think, as many people think it is. That you need to be able to have something set aside for those rainy days. A little bit of insurance, because really that's what prepping is. It's a type of insurance that you yourself are putting, physical goods, and then also building your own skills and mindset and developing the strength of your mind and your heart to get through whatever troubled times you may face, whether it be losing a job, a very harsh winter, a tornado, a hurricane, a stock market crash, or just the end of the world. I mean, it doesn't matter how small or how large the scale is. Prepping can help you get prepared for that. And so that's where most people start off at. And prepping has become a fairly popular thing over the last 6 to 9 months. But really, even before the whole pandemic happened, prepping was starting to become a little bit more accepted. 10 years ago, there were shows like Doomsday Preppers. I don't know if that was quite 10 years ago, but I think so. And you would start hearing a little bit about it in TV and the media and stuff. And it was still kind of a joke, but more and more people were warming up to it. And then in the last couple of years, it's become really its own industry. And there's entire companies that manufacture goods just for preppers. There's tons and tons of businesses that exist for nothing else but to serve preppers. And it's become a much more accepted and legitimate hobby, a legitimate thing to do. So prepping is something that, whether everyone is a prepper, everyone pretty much knows kind of what a prepper is. And there's less negative stigma on being a prepper. So that's kind of the first stage. That's where you're putting stuff back. Maybe most of your life is still pretty much the same way as it was before. You've awakened. You've realized that the world we live in is a little bit more unstable than you think. And if there's a bad ice storm, or there's a bad tornado or hurricane, or the election collapses, or whatever it is, that there's no guarantee tomorrow that the grocery stores will still be filled with food, and that the water will always work, or that the electricity will always come on when you flip the light switch. So we're going to start putting some stuff back, developing some skills, so that we can be ready for whatever might happen. That is prepping. Now let's move on to being a survivalist. A survivalist takes it a step further. A survivalist is starting to become more of a lifestyle. You're learning more skills, more hardened skills. You're becoming, and a lot of people may differ with me. A lot of people may argue that survivalists should be the top tier and not self-sufficiency, but let me explain why. As a survivalist, you may choose to live out more in a rural area, in an area that you might be able to take care of yourself a little bit better in bad times versus maybe in the city or in an apartment. You've learned more skills. You're not just so dependent upon, packaged, prepackaged food, whether it be prepper food or just lots of canned food that you would get at the store. So you've learned how to maybe forage for things. You've learned to grow your own food or hunt for your own food. You're still, for the most part, kind of connected to the world, but you're starting to view yourself as really different, because you're not just prepping for a downturn in something. You're not just prepping because you're going to be without power for a couple of weeks during a storm, or that the food system might kind of take a pause for a while, or slow down a bit because of a pandemic, or that there could be a wildfire that knocks out the electrical grid for a while. You're prepping for more hardcore stuff. You are prepping for more long term. You have the skills, or are developing the skills, and you have the tools and equipment to kind of ride out things for a much longer time period, and maybe permanently. That's where a survivalist is. A survivalist is someone that can go out into the woods and can, if something bad happens, he can put his pack on and he can go out in the woods and he can survive out in the woods. He knows how to go out in these woods and build a shelter, and he knows how to forage for things, and he knows how to take care of wounds, and he knows how to, snare and trap animals, and do maybe even primitive things. Primitive skills is also part of survival skills, because all the cool little tools that you've bought at the store for your prepping bug out bag, they may fail. They're not going to last forever. And so as a survivalist, you learn to develop primitive skills too. You learn to build something out of complete natural, things around you. How to take a rock and a stick and craft it into a knife. How to make a bow and make arrows, and out of what you find in the natural world around you. That's really what a survivalist is. So it's taking it another step, a higher level. Being self-sufficient, in my mind, is taking it even another step. You've taken being a survivalist and all the skills that you have, all the mindset that you've developed, and you're putting it into a complete lifestyle that you're living. So if you consider yourself a survivalist, and your entire life is trying to be self-sufficient, you're trying to not just have the skills to know how to grow your own food, but you're actively growing your own food. Your goal is to get to where a certain percentage, if not all, of your food is produced by your own hands somehow, whether you've gardened, grown it, whether you've foraged for it in the wild, whether you've raised the animals, or whether you've hunted or fished them. Maybe your goal is to get to where all of your food comes from your own hands, the work of your own hands. Self-sufficiency is knowing, having the skills and even the tools to go out and to basically live your life now on your own. And in my mind, survivalists have the know-how to live on their own out in the wild, but they don't always do it. They may still live in a normal house. They may still have normal modern conveniences in their lives, or they may only part of their life really is the survivalist mindset. Whereas self-sufficiency, it's truly a complete lifestyle, and that is something that I have always pushed to be. In fact, I was dreaming about that and learning about that long before I really even knew what a prepper was. And I'm trying to remember, it wasn't really a term that was used too much back then. I'm sure it existed, but it wasn't really something that a lot of people talked about. You were either a survivalist, or you were kind of this off-grid, self-sufficient, back to the earth kind of person. And so I wanted to take both of those and put them together. And so that is the lifestyle that I've always tried to live. And I believe that if that is where you set your goal, and not just to be a prepper, because to me, in my mind, if you're just a prepper, you're only prepared for something in a more of a short-term situation, maybe 6 months, maybe a year. What we're seeing happen in our world today is going to probably affect us the rest of our lives, because, as we've all been told, this is the new normal. We are never, most likely never, going to go back to the way it was January 1st, 2020. The world has forever changed since then, and will most likely continue to change, and will continue to go through drastic changes. And because of that, those of us down lower on the food chain are probably going to feel the pains of that. Those that are set up high on the food chain, the elites, they're gonna weather this storm just fine, because they always do. They always have. And so those of us down here that are trying to get by on our own, with all this, great reset and the new Green Deal changes and the radical changes throughout our government and other governments and global governance, they have a good chance of greatly affecting you in your life and just the stability in how you live. So only preparing for 6 months or a year may not be enough. It doesn't mean that the world is going to be some Mad Max scenario for the next 20 or 30 years. I mean, certainly that's a possibility, but probably unlikely. But what I'm saying is that things could be very different. How you buy your food, where you buy your food, what you're able to buy, and if you're able to buy anything at all, because of changing of currencies and how those currencies work. Maybe they're digital, maybe they're, in your skin. There's a lot of changes that could potentially happen over the next few years. And so being in a position that you are more self-sufficient is going to give you an advantage over a lot of people. Of course, there's always the argument that, well, they'll eventually come for you also. And when that happens, you have to make a decision whether to take a stand and know that taking that stand could be your last breath, or to give in. But until that day happens, being more self-sufficient, taking the prepper skills, the knowledge, and the tools, and the foods, and the things that you've done as a prepper, and developing them into being a survivalist, to where you have the skills to go out and to survive, taking those skills and then putting them into your daily lifestyle, to where now your lifestyle is self-sufficiency, and you're learning to use less, to depend on the system less, to do more and more of the things that you need to live off of by your own hands, the things that you need on a day-to-day basis to live are things that you have provided for yourself, or you and your family have provided. That is where you should try to get to. I understand it's different for everyone, and not everyone can attain quite that level. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have that goal to get to that level, because along the way, if that's what you're shooting for, you may find that certain parts of being self-sufficient aren't as difficult as you thought. And just trying to learn skill after skill, and developing your mindset, and building your tools and the things that you need to become self-sufficient sometimes isn't as hard as you think it is. So while we use these terms, and kind of cross over, and sometimes it's prepper, and sometimes it's survivalist, and sometimes it's self-sufficient, I really think that it would be in everyone's best interest if, as you're being a prepper, your goal is to be truly self-sufficient, and to figure out how it is that you can be self-sufficient in the world that you live in. Because at some point, your choice may be to either live completely self-sufficient, or to become a total and complete servant of the system. And when that day comes, it's too late to try to be self-sufficient. You need to work on those skills right now, because if you wait until you need them, you've already lost. It's too late. So I want to encourage you to develop those survivalist skills, and to also get to where, little by little, you and your family are more self-sufficient. And not only is it increase your odds of survival overall, I do believe it also it's empowering, because that's part of that pioneer spirit that founded America, that grew America, was that self-sufficient pioneer spirit. People came to this country and they spread across the nation and built the nation that we have, not because they were hoping for handouts, not because every time someone offended them or every time things got tough, they ran to the government and asked for their help. They did it because that rugged individualist mindset, and that no matter what was going to happen, they were going to survive, and they were going to do it all on their own. And if we can bring that back here in America, who knows, it just might be the thing that saves us. All right, folks, let me know what you think on this. I encourage your opinions. If you want to get a hold of me, I've got a lot of different ways to contact me. Below in the description, I also have some really great products, food products, water filters, things like that below in the description. You don't have to, but if you're interested in the market in them, it would help us out if you use the links that I provide below. All right, folks, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.